How you doing? I'm Tony. Welcome aboard the Rambles. Today we are talking tank engines. But before we get started, I wanted to talk very briefly about something that happened to me, which was completely insane. I was driving to work the other day, listening to the York episode of the Matt and Matt podcast, when co-host Johnny started talking about this channel. I could not believe it. You might not believe it either. Here, let me dial up the podcast and you can take a listen.
One of the stories I've seen that happened from York, we're good friends with JD Stocks, Jason, and RBP Trains, Chris, and they had they went together as a duo through the majority of the show, and they ran into this gentleman who went up to them and asked, I like your stuff, how do I start my own YouTube channel? They gave him the advice, you just gotta do it, show your face, have fun, all this other stuff. And this gentleman started his own YouTube channel. It's called The Rambles.
I know, crazy, right? I can hardly believe it. Check out the Matt and Matt podcast. You will not be disappointed. Also, check out Johnny on YouTube. He makes some of the most exciting and fun O-Gauge content on the platform. I've watched him for a very long time. That all being said, you didn't come to this video because you wanted to see me bloviate. You came here because you wanted to talk trains. So I wanted to let you know this is the first in a two-part series. Next time, I'm going to take you to Bethlehem Steel to look at whether or not Bethlehem Steel actually had an 060 switcher like this. If Lionel made a train that never existed, maybe we should start calling them Lionel. Just kidding. But that's going to be a great video. Regardless, I got some great, stunning 4K drone footage. That is until I got kicked off the property. So you're not going to want to miss it. Subscribe. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to take a 2015 060 switcher and compare it to a 2020 060 switcher. We're going to look at what's the same, what's different. I'm going to put them through their paces, and also we're going to take a look inside. So stay tuned and all aboard. Here we get our first look at the 2020 Lionchief 2.0 060T. Next is the 2015 060 from the Hobby Shop exclusive Ready to Run set. Or was it the other way around? I can't tell the difference. Well, that's not entirely true. There have been some major upgrades. Let's take a look at what these engines came with. The Ready to Run model came with the obligatory dollop of smoke fluid and traction tires. The 2020 model came with an awesome tool to take the side rods off. This makes it easier to change traction tires. However, the 2015 set did come with a remote, which you can see here. One key difference is the name. Despite these being the same model, the 2020 manual has a T after the 060. And what the heck is 060 anyways? For that, we need to go back in time. This is Mr. Frederick Meth Van Whyte, the creator of the Whyte Notation, a classification method for steam locomotives. Whyte made the lives of early 20th century railfans a lot easier by creating this classification system based on the wheel arrangement of the steam locomotives. The notation counts the number of leading wheels, then the number of driving wheels, and finally the number of trailing wheels. The numbers are separated by dashes. In the case of our little tank engines, there are no leading wheels nor trailing wheels. It's all drive. Hence, the 060 designation. Now what about the T? This is where it gets a little complicated. Grab a pen and paper. Okay, got it? T stands for tank engine. Tank engines, like a certain helpful little engine, generally do not carry coal tenders for fuel and water. Usually, everything is contained on the engine itself. Take a look at this tank engine. I highlighted the tank for you here. This is called a saddle tank, I guess because it kind of looks like a saddle. Often, saddle tanks receive the designation ST rather than just T. The 060 I'm reviewing here appears to be a saddle tank. Was Lionel asleep on the job? The answer is, it doesn't matter, because these are toy trains. Okay, with that background out of the way, let's get to it. The 2020 Docksider is quite popular. This thing was a sleeper though. I don't know if anyone pre-ordered it, but when it came out, they flew off the shelves. This locomotive was cataloged in the 2020 Big Book with an MSRP of $249.99. Lionel truly outdid themselves, packing this tiny locomotive with huge features. Prior to the 2020 offering, Lionel cataloged this model in a ready-to-run set, which we will say was inspired by Bethlehem Steel. The 2015 model is the one we're comparing to the 2020 model today. If you purchased this ready-to-run set, you would have paid $90 more, but would have gotten 3 pieces of rolling stock, a bridge, a remote, and all the track you needed to run a small railroad. Let's go back in time once again. This time to the year Lost had us confounded and Facebook was just starting. 2004. In that year's catalog, Lionel first introduced the switcher we are reviewing today. Back then, it cost $99.99 and ran conventionally. But it did have a whistle, smoke, and couplers you could operate if you had a special piece of track. The model was well reviewed, with Classic Toy Trains calling it a quote winner, even if they did say the whistle sounded like it was being fed through a door buzzer. Classic Toy Trains had this to say about the tooling and whether or not it was scale. Quote, Lionel selected a small industrial switcher of the style made by Alco in the early years of the 20th century. Classic Toy Trains suggested in their article that Lionel switcher was likely based on a locomotive owned by the Leetonia and Cherry Valley Railroad. I'm probably mispronouncing that. They go on, quote, the Lionel model's frame measures 29 feet long in O scale. Compare that to this drawing of the Leetonia switcher, 29 feet and 2 inches. Looking at this image, you can really get an idea of how cartoonishly large O-gauge couplers are, but that's a conversation for another time. The point here is, the locomotive appears to be a scale model. These locomotives are all but identical in appearance. However, they operate very differently. In these clips, I'm moving the throttle very slowly, yet the 2015 model jumps from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, while the 2020 model is a total creeper. Herein lies the first area where I think the 2015 model is better. That Bethlehem text looks awesome across the back. Why didn't they include it on the 2020 edition? Both models have directional lighting, so the headlight illuminates as it goes forward, and the light at the back of the cab illuminates when it's going backwards. The side-by-side shots show how similar these engines really are. If the numbers were the same, I don't know that I could determine which switcher is which. However, if you look especially closely, the logo is larger on one than the other. Can you tell? Now this might not be a fair fight, but the fan-driven smoke unit on the later model blows the 2015 model away. There's no contest. This single upgrade changes everything. This also may not be a fair demonstration of the 2015 model because the smoke unit may need to be serviced as it's been used quite a bit over the years and not all that well maintained. However, even at its best, the 2015's smoke unit couldn't hold a flame to that of the 2020 model. And now for a little fun. If you have ever had kids at your layout, or if by chance you are a child yourself at one point, you may want your trains to be fast above all else. So today, I answer the question, which switcher is faster? This truly surprised me. Straight away, the 2015 model takes the lead. Both of these trains are being operated by the Lionchief Universal Remote. I thought the 2020 model smoke unit was a culprit slowing it down because of how many amps the smoke unit drove. But test after test confirmed the same result. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. The 2015 Docksider won with 5 seconds to spare. Now for the tug of war. Well, if the 2020 model was slower, certainly it has more torque and will easily win at tug of war. Let's find out. "2015 wins again." These results were surprising. We will have to take a look inside to find out what's going on. But before we go there, we should look at the bottom of these locomotives. Just like the units which came before, the 2015 model has magnetic couplers. The 2020 060T sees a massive upgrade with front and rear electrocouplers. These can easily be thrown at any time using the Cab 1 remote. Let's take a look at the switches under these switchers. The 2015 model has one switch for the chuff sound and one switch for the smoke. As we look to the 2020 model, you can see the switch to engage or disengage this Bluetooth control. Lionel didn't always have this switch, so if your grandpa has an older engine or doesn't know about the switch, you can hijack his Locos using the app. Okay, the moment you've been waiting for. We're going to take a look inside these locomotives. Now, of course, in order to do that, we're going to use a screwdriver and we're going to take out 4 screws. I'll show you how to do it right now. To look inside, unscrew the screws underneath the engine here and on the rear bottom as well. Opening the model will be the same regardless of which one you operate. Don't do this unless you have a well-founded understanding of electronics. Components like capacitors can electrocute you even if there's no power running to the locomotive. Here we get our first look at the internals, and to my surprise, the motors and flywheels look exactly the same, but the similarities end there. With either engine, I disconnect the wires going to the cab light and directional lighting. The wiring on the 2020 model is a lot tidier and would be easier to repair should something go wrong with the locomotive. The 2015 model, not so much. Here we get a look at the final disappointing aspect of the 2020 model. Lionel obviously needed more space for the electronics. Their solution leaves something to be desired. Where the 2015 model has an albeit sparsely decorated cab interior, the 2020 model has a very flimsy, cheap-looking piece of plastic. Surprisingly, the smoke box at the front of the engine looks to be untouched. My assumption was that Lionel would have needed to make modifications in order to fit the fan-driven smoke unit. The Lionchief model seems to have a few subboards and a large antenna in the center there. My guess is that's for Bluetooth, but if you know, please let me know in the comments. You can see the small motor for the fan-driven smoke unit. I wonder if the smoke unit was especially designed for this model. Likely was. You don't have to be a computer scientist to see the PCB on the 2015 model has a lot fewer components. This makes sense given that there have been quite a few upgrades in the 2020 model. If you own the 2015 060, unplug this wire. What is it? The speaker. The sound is extremely loud without a way to turn it down. Even if you turn off the chuff, you get an ear-piercing steam sound clip each time you transition directions. Finally, if you ever open one of these up, make sure you watch for these added pieces in the front. They are easy to lose. Which brings us to our sponsor, Magnet on a Stick. If you are as bad as me at keeping track of small pieces, you'll need a magnet on the stick. Please join me next time to learn about the switchers that may or may not have been used at Bethlehem Steel. Until then, try to stay on the right track.